What if I told you that the most powerful path to peace, strength, and direction doesn't come from mastering the external world, but from conquering the inner one? Picture this: emperors, warriors, enslaved individuals, and philosophers, all living through eras filled with upheaval, disease, invasions, and betrayal. Yet amid that chaos, many uncovered a profound serenity, not because they altered their circumstances, but because they transformed themselves. That's the core of Stoicism. And it's the reason why the principles I'm about to explore with you might completely shift how you experience your life. Because once you learn to direct your energy inward, once you develop resilience from within, everything around you begins to fall into alignment. Think of Marcus Aurelius, not just the ruler of the Roman Empire, but a man who thought deeply, wrote diligently, and stood at the center of constant turmoil. His realm was under constant siege, plagues ravaged his citizens, and conspiracies loomed daily. Yet his personal journal, now known as Meditations, was not filled with anger or bitterness. It echoed with patience, purpose, and surrender to truth. Why? Because Marcus grasped a fundamental truth. We can't dictate the course of the world, but we can always shape our response to it. That is the Stoic path, and it's a road that remains open to you and me right now. This philosophy isn't abstract or vague. Stoicism is raw, it's practical, it's a compass for living. Epictetus, who began his life in chains, once said, "The ultimate aim of life is freedom, and that freedom comes from letting go of anything beyond our influence." That's what this video will uncover. I'm going to walk you through 10 powerful Stoic principles that can help you stop wasting energy on things you'll never control and start channeling that power where it belongs, into your own mind, your own choices, and your own moral core. Here's the promise. By the time we finish, you'll see hardship, struggle, even pain through a new lens. You'll understand that self-focus isn't selfishness, it's wisdom. Because only when your foundation is solid can you face life's chaos without crumbling. These lessons won't ask you to fix the world. They'll ask you to shift your perspective. And that shift is where the transformation begins. But be warned, this isn't meant to be passively consumed. These aren't words to simply hear. They are tools to be applied. The Stoics believed that philosophy must be practiced, not just preached. As Seneca said, philosophy instructs us how to live, not how to talk. So I invite you not only to listen, but to live what you hear, starting today. And one more thing, stay with me until the very end. The final lesson, the 10th, is perhaps the most life-altering of them all. It's the very principle Marcus Aurelius returned to when everything else seemed to collapse. It's endured centuries. And if you internalize it, it may become the anchor of your own strength, no matter the storms life brings. Now, before we begin, I ask one small thing of you: engage. This is not a philosophy of spectators, it's one of the participants. So when something resonates, when a line hits deeply, pause and write in the comments, "Control yourself." It's a short phrase, but a powerful ritual. In those 2 words, you declare to yourself, "I take back the reins. I reclaim my agency. I focus on what truly belongs to me." Now let's begin. Prepare to walk the path once walked by Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca. Prepare to shed the noise of the world and return to the source of unshakable strength, yourself. Because when your mind is steady, your vision clear, and your discipline sharp, everything around you begins to shift. Not because the world changed, but because you did. This is not just philosophy. This is a way of living, and it's waiting for you. Lesson 1. Surrender to what you cannot command. When Marcus Aurelius collapsed into his journal after another day filled with imperial burdens, there was one truth he reminded himself of more than any other. You are sovereign only over your mind, not over the events outside of it. Recognize this, and you'll uncover true strength. This simple, profound insight is the foundation of Stoicism. Everything begins with acceptance. Acceptance that life includes forces beyond your grasp, and that peace begins when you stop resisting them. Now think about your own life. How many hours have you lost wishing someone would change? How many sleepless nights spent replaying events you couldn't undo? How often have you hoped reality would rewrite itself? We've all been there. We've all wasted precious energy wrestling with the unchangeable. But the Stoics saw the trap. They understood it's not the events themselves that inflict suffering, but our refusal to accept them. Epictetus, born in chains and left crippled by a brutal master, had every reason to drown in bitterness. But instead, he became one of history's most powerful teachers of peace. Because he refused to allow what he couldn't change to rule his soul. He taught that the first task of a philosopher is this: draw the boundary. Here is what I control, my thoughts, my values, my decisions, and here is what I do not: other people, fate, chance, illness, even death. When you blur that line, you suffer. But when you see it clearly, you unlock freedom. Let's test it in real life. You're in traffic, stuck for an hour. Is your rage moving the cars? A flight gets cancelled, derailing your plans. Does your panic change the weather? A betrayal cuts deep. Does obsessing over it undo the wound? Of course not. The Stoics tell us it's not about surrendering to life. It's about stopping the war you've been waging with reality. This kind of acceptance isn't weakness. It's clarity. It's choosing not to pour your energy into hopeless battles. Instead, you turn that energy inward, to guide your reactions, to shape your character, and to hold your dignity. Paradoxically, when you stop grasping for control, you become far more powerful. Picture the calm one during a crisis, their voice steady, their breath slow. They didn't tame the storm, they just refused to be ruled by it. That's what Marcus Aurelius practiced. With his empire unraveling, with enemies pressing in, disease spreading, and betrayal all around, he returned to one principle. If external things disturb you, it's not the events, it's your judgment. And you always have the power to change that. To live by this lesson is to open the door to deep peace. Just imagine, how different would life feel if you let go of the expectation that others should always behave how you want? If you stopped trying to command the wind and simply adjusted your sails, that's freedom. And that's why this is lesson 1. It's the clearest to understand, but the hardest to live. Because while the line between control and surrender is obvious, our hearts keep reaching for what we can't hold. But remember, storms don't ask for permission. They arrive, rage, and fade, regardless of your resistance. Your only choice is this: will you drown trying to hold back the sea, or will you float by accepting the current? So as we begin this Stoic journey, carry this first truth. Surrender what isn't yours to control, and master what is, your own mind. In that act, everything else begins to settle into place. Lesson 2, command your reactions. Seneca once observed, "We are tormented more by imagination than by reality." The Stoics knew something vital. While life may strike from the outside, the battle that truly matters unfolds within the boundaries of your own mind. Circumstances may test you through insult, through loss, through pain, but your response, that is yours and yours alone. To center yourself, to let the rest fall into place, You must develop internal control. Without it, you're at the mercy of every wind that blows. With it, you become immovable. Picture yourself in the bustle of ancient Rome. You're walking through the marketplace. A stranger, distracted, stumbles into you. Wine spills on your cloak. You could shout, lash out, draw a crowd. Or you could pause, breathe, and continue with dignity. The event itself is neutral. It gains power only through your interpretation. The same principle applies to modern life. A colleague sends a sharp email. A stranger cuts you off in traffic. A family member speaks harshly. These moments will come. But it's not the insult, the offense, the friction that truly causes suffering. It's the reaction you permit. Epictetus compared life to a play. You do not control the script. You do not choose the cast. But you always decide how to perform your role. If another character delivers a cruel line, it is just a line. It only causes harm if you step out of character and forget who you are meant to be. And who are you meant to be? Someone who lives with logic, with integrity, with steady resolve. When you master your reactions, you remain true to yourself, even in the most turbulent scenes. Now think about the people you admire. Those who stay composed while others unravel. Those who bring calm to chaos. Why do we look up to them? Because they represent a strength that doesn't come from controlling others, but from self-control. This inner mastery doesn't mean you bury your emotions. The Stoics never asked us to suppress what we feel. They asked us to pause, to question, to choose. Anger may rise, fear may whisper, grief may settle in your chest. These emotions are human, but they are not commands. Marcus Aurelius practiced this pause. He often reminded himself, "External things cannot harm me unless I allow them to." The harm begins when you give away your power, when you let reaction take over intention. Consider this in a modern example. You read a message that stings, your heart races, your fists clench, and now comes the fork in the road. Path 1. You react, you fire back, you burn bridges, you regret it later. Path 2. You wait, you breathe, you allow time for wisdom to return. Then you respond, or choose not to respond at all. That second path, that pause, is what builds mastery, not over others, over yourself. The Stoics believed this was the essence of freedom. If no one can force you to act against your principles, then no one can truly enslave your spirit. They can offend you, but you are free not to be offended. They can wound your body, but you are free to act with bravery. They can take what you own, but you are free to remain virtuous. This is why Epictetus, even in chains, stood freer than many rulers. And yes, this discipline takes time. It starts with awareness, catching the reaction as it rises. It grows through intention, asking what matters most. And it matures through habit, choosing calm over chaos again and again until it becomes second nature. Eventually, anger fades before it reaches your lips. Panic dissolves before it guides your decisions. You no longer flinch, you reflect. To master your reactions is to hold the keys to tranquility. Without this control, small things become large torments. With it, even large troubles become manageable. Marcus Aurelius was betrayed, surrounded by illness and war. Yet his writing remains even-toned, deliberate, composed. He had learned that while the world can shake your surroundings, it cannot shake your soul unless you let it. So let this lesson settle deep within you. Don't obsess over what others say. Don't lose sleep over what others do. Focus on the only part that truly belongs to you, your response. That is where your power lives. That is where your freedom begins. And when you claim that control, you'll see something incredible. Everything else starts to align, not because the world changes, but because you've stopped allowing it to disturb you. Lesson 3. Live in harmony with nature. The Stoics often return to a guiding principle that at first glance may seem vague or ancient. Live in accordance with nature. But within those 5 words lies a depth of insight that remains vital in our modern world. Because to live according to nature is to live in alignment with truth, as it is, not as we wish it were. Today, we are surrounded by concrete, screens, and artificial environments. So what does it really mean to live naturally in a world so far removed from the earth? It doesn't mean retreating into the forest or abandoning technology. Instead, it means embracing the reality of life as it actually functions. It means recognizing our place in the grand design, accepting the cycles of existence, and aligning our choices with the deeper rhythm of nature. For Marcus Aurelius, this meant remembering daily that he was not simply an emperor, but a human being, a creature subject to pain, aging, and death, like everyone else. He reminded himself that he was a thread in the fabric of the universe, not the weaver. He once wrote, "What's bad for the hive is bad for the bee," a reminder that we are not isolated individuals. We are parts of a whole, and we are here not to exploit life, but to contribute meaningfully to it. In our current lives, we suffer because we resist this natural order. We demand that life bend to our expectations, but nature offers challenges. We want people to behave exactly as we imagine, but nature gave us unpredictable humans. We wish for permanence, but nature ensures that everything changes. To live in harmony with nature is to stop battling these truths and to begin flowing with them. Imagine jumping into a river. If you thrash and fight the current, you wear yourself out and go nowhere. But if you learn to swim with the flow, you move forward with less resistance. Life is the same. Pain, loss, change, and death. They are all parts of the current. Fighting them only exhausts you. Acceptance, on the other hand, allows you to move with grace. Seneca cautioned us about resisting reality. He wrote, "Fate leads the willing, but drags the unwilling." And in your life, how many times have you been dragged? Holding on to dying relationships, refusing inevitable change at work, gripping tightly to youth as the years move on. It wasn't life that hurt you, it was the refusal to let go. But the Stoics meant more than just accepting external events. They also meant returning to your inner nature, to what makes you uniquely human. And what is the nature of a human being? To think clearly, to act justly, to live in community, to honor virtue over impulse. When you live selfishly, when you betray your values or act in ignorance, you are tearing away from your own design. But when you align with reason, with integrity, with moderation, you feel at peace. To live according to nature is to live with daily intention, to pause and ask, am I thinking clearly or reacting blindly? Am I being fair in my words and actions? Am I letting desire rule me, or am I guiding myself with discipline? Am I contributing to the whole or just taking from it? These questions connect you back to who you're meant to be. Today's world often sells a lie. That fulfillment is found in luxury, indulgence, and status. But those things often distract us from our true nature. That's why so many people with success still feel empty. The Stoics invite us to return to simplicity, to service, to awareness. Living according to nature also means embracing impermanence. Everything changes, everything passes, The trees shed their leaves, the seasons turn, nothing remains forever. If we expect permanence, we set ourselves up for endless grief. But if we accept transience, we find beauty in what is fleeting. Marcus Aurelius would often remind himself that even the greatest emperors before him were now dust. Far from depressing him, this gave him urgency. It sharpened his focus on what mattered most. So what does this lesson ask of you? It asks you to let go of illusion, to meet life as it is, to stop demanding that reality conform to your ego, and instead let your ego dissolve into the truth. It asks you to recognize that you are part of something far larger than yourself. And with that recognition comes your responsibility to live well, live wisely, live in step with the world, not against it. Because when you stop resisting what must be, when you act with reason and with virtue, and when you honor the cycles of life, then you are no longer fragile. You are no longer drifting aimlessly. You are walking in harmony. You are walking freely. Lesson 4. Treat adversity as your training ground. The Stoics never prayed for a life without obstacles. They didn't ask the gods for comfort, safety, or ease. Instead, they prepared their spirits for the inevitable storms of existence. To them, every difficulty was not a punishment, but a lesson. Not a curse, but a test. Not a burden, but the very material from which strength is forged. Marcus Aurelius captured this truth with unforgettable clarity. The obstacle is the way. The very thing that blocks your path becomes the path. This idea is both radical and liberating. Imagine if every setback you faced became an invitation to grow. Imagine if every insult became a test of patience, every loss a test of resilience, every challenge a test of courage. This is the Stoic art of transforming adversity into advantage. Think of a soldier preparing for battle. He doesn't become strong through rest or comfort. He builds endurance by confronting hardship, by lifting, marching, sweating, and persevering. Each trial strengthens his resolve. Life operates by the same rule. Without adversity, your character remains untested and fragile. With it, you cultivate the mental muscles of endurance and wisdom. Seneca warned that a life of constant ease weakens the soul. He wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Avoiding difficulty doesn't protect you, it imprisons you in weakness. Pain is the whetstone that sharpens your edge." Look back at your own story. Think of the moments that truly shaped you. The losses, the heartbreaks, the failures. Were they pleasant? Number. But didn't they carve resilience, humility, and depth into your spirit? When people look back on their lives, the chapters that forged their greatness are rarely the easy ones. They are the chapters written in struggle, because suffering, when faced with wisdom, refines who you are. Epictetus knew this truth intimately. Born a slave, crippled for life, he could have surrendered to despair. Instead, he taught his students to view every hardship as raw material for virtue. Pain was an opportunity to practice endurance. Injustice was a chance to practice fairness. Fear was a moment to practice courage. For him, life itself was the gymnasium of the soul. In contrast, modern life often worships comfort. We chase convenience, luxury, and security. But comfort breeds fragility. When we never test ourselves, even small problems overwhelm us. That's why people today collapse under minor inconveniences, because they've never trained for discomfort. The Stoics call us back to strength. Not to seek pain, but to stop fearing it. Not to love suffering, but to use it. When hardship comes, don't say, "Why me?" Say instead, "Why not me?" Here is my chance to rise. When faced with heavy burdens, don't wish for lighter loads. Train for a stronger back. Marcus Aurelius lived through war, disease, and betrayal, yet his writings reveal no bitterness. He saw each trial as material for virtue, each hardship as the forge that shaped his character. That's why his words still move us centuries later, because he lived what he believed. Now imagine what would happen if you lived this way. Instead of shrinking from pressure, you'd welcome it. Instead of dreading problems, you'd study them. Instead of asking life for comfort, you'd ask it for challenge. Because the harder the test, the greater the transformation. Every difficulty, every rejection, every heartbreak becomes part of your training. And the more you train, the less you fear. You stop being surprised by adversity and start being sculpted by it. So the next time life presses you down, pause and whisper, "This is training. This pain is shaping me. This struggle is strengthening me. This obstacle is preparing me for something greater." When you learn to see adversity as training, you stop running from life. You start mastering it. And when you cultivate this strength, everything else, your peace, your purpose, your power, begins to fall perfectly into place. Lesson 5. Free yourself from the grip of desire. Desire is one of the most persistent traps of the human mind. The craving for more status, more possessions, more validation. It whispers that fulfillment is always just one step away, just one achievement further, just one purchase beyond the horizon. But the Stoics saw desire for what it is, a prison built by our own expectations. Seneca put it sharply, "It's not the man who has little who is poor, but the one who always wants more." To focus inward and find clarity, you must learn to loosen the chains of desire. This doesn't mean rejecting life's pleasures. The Stoics were not hermits hiding in caves. They enjoyed the world, but refused to be enslaved by it. The aim is not to eliminate desire completely, but to master it. To be the owner of your wants, rather than their servant. Look around in today's world. You're told to chase the newest gadgets, the biggest house, the perfect body, the highest income. You might even get some of it. But once the excitement fades, the hunger reappears, stronger, louder, more desperate. This is the cycle of desire, a treadmill with no destination. Epictetus taught a simple practice. When you catch yourself wanting something, pause. Remind yourself, is this thing even within my control? Is this outcome guaranteed? And more importantly, do I need it to live wisely and well? If not, then you're tying your peace to the winds of fortune. But if you can say, I'll enjoy it if it comes, but I'm whole without it, then you are free. This mindset shifts your energy. You stop living in future fantasies and start finding richness in what's already present. Gratitude is the antidote to greed. Seneca encouraged his students to take stock daily of what they already possessed. Food on the table, a roof overhead, a sound mind, a clear conscience. When you can appreciate these, you stop chasing shadows. Desire loses its grip when appreciation takes root. Even Marcus Aurelius, seated at the pinnacle of wealth and power, practiced simplicity. He knew luxuries were fragile. He knew craving only leads to discontent. So he placed his highest value not on gold or glory, but on character. He wrote, "You can be happy right now if you only focus on what depends on you." And what depends on you? Your thoughts, your choices, your virtue. In today's culture of consumerism, this lesson is a rebellion. Advertisements try to convince you that you are always lacking. But the Stoic message is firm. You are not lacking, you are distracted. Peace doesn't come from acquiring more. It comes from needing less. Now, This does not mean giving up all ambition. The Stoics admired effort, discipline, and meaningful goals, but they drew a line between healthy ambition and blind craving. You can strive to improve, to contribute, to create. But you must remain indifferent to results that lie beyond your reach. You can aim, but you cannot cling. You can try, but you cannot depend. And perhaps, most importantly, detachment prepares you for loss. Everything you possess can be taken: your money, your health, your relationships. None of it is permanent. So why live as if they define your worth? Epictetus advised, "When you kiss your child, say silently, 'Tomorrow they may die.'" Not to be cruel, but to wake up, to love without attachment, to enjoy without clinging. To detach from desire is to unlock a deeper freedom, a freedom from fear, from comparison, from dissatisfaction. Imagine how much peace you would feel if you no longer needed anything to feel whole. Imagine enjoying what you have without obsessing over what's missing. Imagine being rich not in things, but in clarity. The next time desire pulls you forward, ask yourself, will this bring peace, or will it add more weight to carry? Choose instead to invest in what already belongs to you: your values, your wisdom, your discipline. That is real abundance. And when you let go of craving, everything else in your life begins to fall naturally into place. Lesson 6. Strengthen yourself through voluntary discomfort. The Stoics understood something modern minds often overlook. Real resilience isn't forged in ease, it's shaped in challenge. But they took this truth a step further. They didn't wait for difficulty to arrive. They went out to meet it. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, practiced this regularly. He would wear rough clothing, eat plain meals, sleep without comfort. Then he would ask himself, "Is this what I feared?" By choosing discomfort in small, controlled ways, he made himself ready for life's bigger trials. So when real misfortune arrived, it couldn't shake him. This idea may sound strange to us today. Why embrace discomfort on purpose in a world designed to remove it? Our homes are climate-controlled. Our food is instant. Our entertainment is endless. And yet, despite all this, we grow weaker, more anxious, more fragile. Why? Because comfort, when pursued constantly, makes us soft. When we never test our limits, even minor inconveniences feel unbearable. The Stoics saw this coming, and they gave us a solution: train yourself. Not just in theory, but in action. Sleep on the floor, skip a meal, take a cold shower, walk instead of drive. Wear the same clothes for several days. These aren't acts of self-punishment. They're reminders. Reminders that you can endure, that happiness doesn't come from luxury, that your strength doesn't depend on your surroundings. Epictetus, who lived through slavery and disability, taught his students, "Difficulty shows us who we really are." Voluntary discomfort builds that inner foundation. It trains your mind to be calm under pressure, to stay composed in chaos, to remain grateful in simplicity. Because when you've practiced living with less, fortune loses its power to terrify you. Consider how much of our fear comes from imagining loss. Losing wealth, losing comfort, losing status. But what if you've already rehearsed those losses on purpose? What if you've already proven to yourself that you can survive without them? Suddenly, fear fades. You stop gripping life so tightly, you walk lighter. Seneca, who had immense wealth, still made time to live as if he were poor. Why? Because he wanted to ensure that his happiness wasn't built on riches. He wrote, "Set aside days where you are content with the simplest food, the coarsest dress, and ask yourself all the while, Is this what I feared? This was not masochism. It was freedom. Because what can you take from a person who has already let go? You don't need to live like a monk. You don't need to give everything away. But you do need to remind yourself that comfort is a luxury, not a requirement. Choose a small hardship this week. Fast for a day. Walk barefoot. Use no pillow. Deny yourself something trivial. Each time, you'll feel a quiet power rise within. A strength that says, I can endure. I am enough. And here's the unexpected gift. When you return to comfort, you'll feel deeper gratitude. That warm bed feels heavenly. That simple meal tastes divine. Gratitude grows when luxury is no longer taken for granted. This is the Stoic paradox. By embracing discomfort voluntarily, you become more resilient, more grateful, and more at peace. You stop fearing poverty. You stop fearing pain. You stop fearing change, because you've practiced surviving without them. So begin today. Take one deliberate step into discomfort. Feel its weight, and feel your inner strength respond. Because discomfort isn't suffering, it's preparation. And when life inevitably tests you, you won't flinch. You'll meet it with calm, with steadiness, with power. That is the Stoic way. Lesson 7. Protect your time like treasure. Among all the things you possess, wealth, knowledge, reputation, there is one resource more precious than any other: your time. You can earn back lost money. You can rebuild a career. You can even mend broken relationships. But a moment past is gone forever. The Stoics understood this with piercing clarity. Seneca warned, "It's not that life is too short, it's that we waste so much of it." If you want to live with purpose, if you want your efforts to have meaning, you must become a guardian of your time. Stop for a second and reflect. Where does your time actually go? How many hours are consumed by scrolling, by trivial arguments, by chasing pleasures that leave you emptier than before? If you tallied up those moments, you might be shocked at how little is left for what truly matters. The Stoics begged us to awaken, to stop behaving as if we had endless tomorrows. Marcus Aurelius, even as emperor, reminded himself daily, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do, say, and think. These are not words of despair. They are a call to live deliberately, to cut away what distracts, to focus on what counts. To protect your time is to ask constantly, is this worth the hours I'll never get back? And if the answer is no, have the courage to walk away. Saying no isn't selfishness, it's wisdom. Every yes to something trivial is a no to something essential. Seneca pointed out the irony of human behavior. People become furious when they lose money, but they hand over their time, life's most irreplaceable currency, without a second thought. They let entire years slip away to meaningless habits, distractions, and obligations they never truly examined. Today, that warning is more urgent than ever. We live in an age designed to steal your attention. Your phone is engineered to hijack your focus. Social media thrives on your distraction. Advertisers profit from your drift. If you don't take control of your time, someone else will. So how do you begin? First, become aware. Track your days for a week. Where is your energy going? What are you tolerating that adds no value? Then ask yourself boldly, what can I eliminate? What deserves more space? Start small. Replace 1 hour of noise with stillness, 1 hour of gossip with reflection, 1 hour of distraction with purpose. To guard your time is not to live like a machine, it's to choose intentionally. To give hours only to what aligns with your values. Deep relationships, meaningful work, thoughtful study, quiet moments that feed the soul. Even the Emperor of Rome carved out time to write and reflect. If he could, so can we. And when you do, something remarkable happens. Life sharpens. You feel more present, more fulfilled, more focused. Regret begins to fade. Clarity begins to rise. But this only happens if you start now, not someday, not when it's convenient. Now. Because the harsh truth is this: you don't know how much time you have left. Seneca advised, live each day as if it were your whole life. Not to provoke fear, but to inspire urgency. Let each morning be a reminder: my time is not infinite. My hours are not guaranteed. Let me spend them wisely. So take this lesson seriously. Audit your life. Cut the waste. Focus only on what is truly yours. And nothing is more yours than your time. Because when you protect your time fiercely, you begin to reclaim your life. And when you do that, everything else begins to fall beautifully into place. Lesson 8. Take command of your thoughts. Epictetus once taught a principle so clear, so powerful, that it stands at the very core of Stoic wisdom. It's not what happens that disturbs us, but how we think about it. In other words, your mind is the true battlefield, not the outside world, not your circumstances, not the actions of others, but the stories you tell yourself about those things. If you don't control your thoughts, they will control you. And if you allow that to happen, even the smallest inconvenience will feel like a crisis. But if you learn to master your thinking, no chaos can shake you. Every single day, your mind is flooded with impressions: a harsh comment, a disappointing result, a plan that falls apart. And almost instantly, your mind begins weaving meaning. This is unfair. This always happens to me. This ruins everything. It's in that moment, not the event itself, where your suffering begins. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself again and again, you have power over your mind, not outside events. This was not just a comforting idea. It was a commitment. Because here's the truth: no one can force you to think a certain way. Only you can allow a thought to stay and take root. That means your real task as a Stoic is to become a gatekeeper of the mind. Picture a fortified city. A sentry stands at the gate, checking what enters. Only what's useful and true is allowed in. Everything else is turned away. That's your job. You stand watch over your thoughts. When a fear knocks, inspect it. When an insult appears, pause before believing it. When temptation whispers, ask if it's worthy of your peace. Because most people are not destroyed by external events. They're undone by their own mental reactions. Seneca warned that the greatest enemy often lives inside our heads. We imagine disasters that never come. We create pain that doesn't exist. We relive insults that were never personal. And we hand over our peace, one thought at a time. In modern life, this challenge is greater than ever. You live in a world designed to hijack your thinking. Headlines, opinions, notifications, comparison traps. If you allow them unfiltered access to your mind, they'll twist your mood, shape your beliefs, and rob you of focus. But remember, these are just impressions. They only gain power when you give them permission. So guard your mind the way you'd guard your most sacred possession, because it is. Taking command of your thoughts doesn't mean denying pain. The Stoics never asked us to pretend reality is soft. They asked us to face it clearly, without the extra weight of judgment. When pain comes, let it be pain. Not, this shouldn't happen to me. When loss comes, let it be loss. Not, this ruins everything. You do not need to exaggerate reality. It's enough on its own. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and you have the power to revoke that estimate. This is your superpower, to choose which thoughts take root, to train your mind moment by moment. So practice it. When anxiety rises, ask what story you're telling. When anger stirs, pause before acting. When envy creeps in, remind yourself, appearances are deceiving. You are not required to obey every thought that passes through your mind. You can examine, you can filter, you can reject. That's freedom, and that's mastery. So here's a simple practice. When this lesson resonates, type in the comments, master the mind, not as a slogan, as a signal that you are no longer giving your mind away, that you are reclaiming it. Because when you master your thoughts, you master your life. Lesson 9. Focus solely on what's within your control. If Stoicism could be summed up in one guiding principle, this would be it. Some things are up to you, and others are not. Epictetus began his Enchiridion with this truth because he understood that confusing these two realms is the root of almost all human suffering. To live with clarity, to live with strength, you must draw that line clearly and learn to let go of everything beyond it. Think about how much of your daily stress comes from fighting battles that aren't yours to win, worrying about what others think of you, getting angry at the weather, resisting the passage of time. You pour your energy into what cannot be commanded, and in the process, you neglect what is truly yours, your thoughts, your choices, your values. The Stoics showed us another way. Narrow your focus, sharpen your attention. You don't need to govern the entire world. You only need to govern yourself, your attitude, your words, your effort. These belong entirely to you. And no one, not fate, not fortune, not another person, can take them from you. That's why Epictetus, born into slavery, was freer in spirit than many kings. His body could be confined, his surroundings controlled, but his will, his moral compass, was his own. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by war and disease, betrayal and loss, returned again and again to this truth. In his meditations, he reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not external events. He didn't say, fix the world and you'll be happy. He said, fix your thinking and happiness is already yours. In the modern world, this lesson is revolutionary. You're constantly invited to worry about what's beyond your grasp. The news cycle, the opinions of strangers, the state of the economy. But none of that belongs to you. The more you chase control over what's uncontrollable, the more powerless and anxious you feel. But when you shift your focus inward to what you can influence, you reclaim your strength. And that strength is not passive. It's not indifference. It's powerful action where it counts. You can't control how others treat you, but you can control whether you meet it with kindness or with anger. You can't dictate whether life brings you success or failure, but you can control how you show up, with integrity or with complaint. You can't choose how long you'll live, but you can choose how you'll live today. That's enough. Seneca warned us. We suffer more than necessary when we suffer before it's necessary. How often do you live in fear of events that haven't even happened? How often do you suffer in advance, worrying about things you don't command? This is the mind chasing shadows. The Stoic solution: let them go. Say to yourself, this does not belong to me. I release it. That release is where peace begins. Imagine an archer. He prepares his bow, steadies his aim, draws the string. The moment he releases the arrow, he must let go. The outcome is no longer his. Wind may shift, targets may move, the arrow may miss, but he has done his part. To tie your peace to the arrow's flight is to live in constant anxiety, but to tie it to the effort, to the aim, that is freedom. So be like the archer, aim well, do your best, then let the rest fall where it may. This takes practice. Your mind will always try to seize control of the uncontrollable, but every time you remind yourself, every time you pull your focus back, you grow stronger. And over time, this way of thinking becomes natural. You stop scattering energy outward. You start investing it where it belongs, your principles, your purpose, your actions. So here's your practice. The next time something frustrates you, pause and ask, is this mine to control? If the answer is no, release it. If the answer is yes, respond with wisdom. Type in the comments, "My power is mine." Let it be a declaration, a boundary, a promise to stop giving your peace to things that don't belong to you. Because when you focus only on what's within your power, everything else in your life begins to fall into place. Lesson 10. Let virtue be your foundation. At the very center of Stoic thought lies one unwavering truth. The only true good is virtue. The only true evil is vice. Everything else, wealth, status, health, pleasure, may come and go, but they are not what define a life well lived. They are neutral. What gives life meaning is how you live. Not what you possess, not what you suffer, but how you choose to act, think, and respond. Virtue, to the Stoics, wasn't an abstract ideal. It was the cornerstone of existence. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the known world, reminded himself of this constantly. He ruled armies, managed crises, endured betrayal. But none of that mattered more to him than doing what was right. He wrote, "If it's the right thing to do, do it. The rest doesn't matter." Imagine a man with absolute power reducing life to a single command: act with honor. Seneca echoed this sentiment. A good character, once formed, is not easily overthrown. Virtue was not just a defense, it was your anchor in the storm. It gave you direction when the world offered chaos. To live with virtue above all is to recognize that your moral character is the only thing that truly belongs to you. You can lose your fortune, but not your honesty. You can lose your health, but not your courage. You can lose your status, but not your wisdom. Everything external is fragile, but your integrity, if you protect it, is unshakable. The Stoics identified 4 core virtues to live by. Wisdom, the ability to see clearly and act rightly. Justice, giving others their due, treating people fairly and honorably. Courage, facing fear, hardship, and uncertainty with steady resolve. Temperance, exercising self-restraint, balance, and control over desire. These aren't lofty ideas, they're daily choices. Every decision becomes a fork in the road. Will you choose virtue or compromise? Will you act with discipline or give in to impulse? Will you speak truth or twist it to suit your pride? Over time, these choices shape your character, and your character shapes your destiny. This is how the Stoic becomes free. If your happiness is tied to wealth or fame, then you're forever at the mercy of chance. But if your joy is grounded in virtue, then nothing external can ruin you. You can face poverty, obscurity, even death, and still live well, because nothing essential has been taken from you. In today's world, this message is more needed than ever. We're surrounded by messages that glorify success, status, indulgence. But how many wealthy people are truly at peace? How many celebrities are truly whole? How many powerful figures are truly fulfilled? Without virtue, nothing else can satisfy. With it, even the hardest life becomes meaningful. Marcus Aurelius endured personal loss, political betrayal, and endless wars. Yet through it all, he held to one code. If it isn't right, don't do it. If it isn't true, don't say it. This rule, simple and severe, was the compass that guided an emperor, and it can guide you too. So ask yourself each day, am I living wisely? Am I acting justly? Am I showing courage? Am I practicing self-control? If the answer is yes, then no matter what life looks like on the outside, you are living well. That is the Stoic promise. Not that you'll be rich, not that you'll be comfortable, but that you'll be grounded, free, and true. So here's your invitation. If this lesson speaks to you, type in the comments. Virtue first. These two words are a declaration, a compass, a commitment. They remind you that character is your highest possession and the only foundation strong enough to carry the weight of your life. Because when you put virtue above all else, everything else begins to fall into place. Final reflection, a path to strength. We've now walked together through 10 timeless teachings drawn from the deepest roots of Stoic philosophy. Each one has opened a doorway into a more grounded, resilient, and purposeful way of living. And the core insight that binds them all is this: the world is uncertain. It will challenge you, surprise you, and at times break your heart. But peace is always within reach if you learn to master yourself. This is the same insight that sustained Epictetus through slavery, that anchored Seneca through political storms, and that guided Marcus Aurelius at the helm of an empire in crisis. And it can anchor you too, right here, right now. Go back to where we began. Focus on yourself and let everything else fall into place. This is not self-centeredness, it's clarity. Because the alternative is this: you spend your life chasing things you don't control. You tether your happiness to possessions, praise, and fleeting outcomes. You beg the world to bend to your will, and when it doesn't, you suffer. But the Stoics gave us another way, a way of stillness in storms, a way of strength that begins within. Let's briefly revisit the path. Lesson 1 taught us to accept what lies beyond our influence. Lesson 2 showed us how to respond, not react. Lesson 3 called us to live in alignment with reality itself. Lesson 4 reframed adversity as the forge of strength. Lesson 5 urged us to release the grip of craving. Lesson 6 reminded us to embrace discomfort to sharpen our spirit. Lesson 7 taught us to guard our time as life's rarest treasure. Lesson 8 challenged us to take ownership of our thoughts. Lesson 9 narrowed our focus to what we alone can control. Lesson 10 placed virtue at the summit of all things. Together, these teachings don't form a theory, they form a discipline, not something to admire from a distance, but something to live. Because peace isn't the absence of difficulty, it's the presence of inner order. Happiness isn't found in comfort, it's found in integrity. And strength doesn't mean avoiding life's weight, it means standing tall beneath it. So now I ask you, which lesson stirred something inside you? Was it the one that reminded you how much time you let slip away? Was it the one that revealed how tightly you've clung to what was never yours? Was it the one that helped you see the strength you already carry within? Whatever it was, hold on to it. Don't let it fade. Don't let this be just another inspiring video you forget in an hour. The Stoics had no patience for passive reflection. They demanded action. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations to publish a book. He wrote it to sharpen his mind. Seneca didn't compose his letters to impress. He wrote to confront his own weakness. Epictetus didn't speak to entertain. He spoke to transform. And now that responsibility belongs to you. Ask yourself honestly, what will change after today? Will you notice when desire hooks you and release it instead? Will you pause when rage rises and choose reason instead? Will you welcome hardship, not with despair, but with resolve? Will you treat time as sacred, not to be wasted, but invested? Will you make character, not comfort, your compass? Because this is the true Stoic path, not perfection, but practice, not talk, but effort, not escape, but engagement. Each day is a chance to walk this path, to fall, to rise, to become just a little stronger, a little clearer, a little freer. And over time, those steps shape a legacy. So ask yourself, how do you want to be remembered? Not by your titles, not by your possessions, but by your essence, your steadiness, your character. Do you want to be remembered as someone tossed around by life, or someone who met it head-on, calmly and with dignity? That choice is yours, and it's not made in speeches. It's made in your smallest decisions. So here is your final challenge. If you've walked this far with me and you're ready to live by these principles, type in the comments, "Live with virtue." Let these words be your banner, your anchor, your vow. Each time you see them, each time you repeat them, you remind yourself, your peace is internal. Your power is in your response. Your wealth is in your character. Here at our channel, the purpose is not to fill your mind with quotes. It's to sharpen it for real life, to remind you that contentment isn't found in more, but in mastering less. That strength isn't found in force, but in self-discipline. That wisdom isn't memorized, it's practiced. So take these teachings. Don't just reflect on them, live them. In your relationships, in your decisions, in your fears, in your temptations. Let every moment be a training ground, because when adversity strikes, it won't break you. When fortune shifts, you'll remain grounded. When the noise of the world grows louder, you'll walk in quiet certainty. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. This is Stoicism. This is strength. And this is the invitation to walk the path day by day, thought by thought, choice by choice.